Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. She texted, "Stuck at mom's for dinner. Love you." But I was sitting 3 tables away at the same restaurant, watching her kiss someone else. I did not make a scene. I just replied, "Enjoy dinner with your mom," and attached a photo of her table. Her phone dropping was loud enough that I heard it over the low hum of conversation and clinking glasses around us. My name is Brian Walker. I am 34 years old, and I have been with my wife, Tanisha, for 9 years, married for 6. We do not have any children. Tanisha always said she was not ready, and I respected that. Looking back, I guess she wanted to keep her options open. At least, that is the story my mind tells me now when I replay everything. That Thursday began like any other workday. I am in sales for a medical equipment company, and one of my biggest clients wanted to take me to dinner to celebrate closing a major deal. He picked this upscale Italian restaurant in uptown Charlotte, the kind with white tablecloths, dim lighting, a piano playing softly in the corner, and prices that make your wallet nervous before you even open the menu. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I texted Tanisha to let her know I would be home late. "Hey, big client dinner tonight. Probably home late. Do not wait up," I wrote. A few minutes later she replied, "Perfect timing. Mom called. She's feeling lonely. I'm going to have dinner with her tonight. Do not wait up. Love you." I smiled at my phone when I read it. It sounded so ordinary, so routine, that I did not question anything. Tanisha's mother lives about 40 minutes away in a small suburb outside Charlotte, and Tanisha visits her maybe twice a month. It never struck me as strange. They have a complicated relationship, but Tanisha always said she felt guilty if she did not check in regularly. I told her, tell her I said hello, and she responded with a heart emoji. That was the last normal moment of our marriage. I arrived at the restaurant around 7:15 that evening. My client texted that he was running late, stuck in traffic on the interstate. The hostess, a young woman with a polite but slightly tired smile, seated me at a corner booth so I could wait. I slid into the booth, set my phone on the table, and started scrolling through emails, half thinking about quarterly targets and half thinking about what dessert I might justify after we finalized the paperwork. I heard a familiar laugh before I even really registered it. Tanisha has this distinctive laugh, high-pitched at the start, and then trailing into a tiny snort when something really gets her. I have heard it 1,000 times. In our living room during sitcom reruns, in grocery store aisles when I mispronounced some fancy cheese, in bed when I told a corny joke. Hearing it in that restaurant made my head snap up instinctively. 3 tables away, near the large front window that looked out onto the street, there she was. Tanisha, not with her mother. She was sitting across from a man I had never seen before. He looked to be in his mid-30s, clearly a gym regular, with a fitted blazer that looked a little too carefully chosen. They were sharing a bottle of red wine and laughing like they were in their own private world. I watched, frozen, as Tanisha reached across the table and touched his face, her fingers grazing his jaw in a way that had once been reserved for me. A moment later, she leaned in and kissed him. It was not a quick peck. It was a long, unhurried kiss, the kind that says, "We have done this before, and we will do it again." My brain short-circuited. For about 10 seconds, my thoughts were static. The waiter walked up to my table and asked, "Would you like some water while you wait, sir?" I must have nodded, because a few seconds later there was a cold glass of water in front of me, tiny beads of condensation forming on the outside. My hand was shaking. I felt like I might throw up right there on the tablecloth. But I still did not stand up, did not yell, did not confront them. I sat there like a statue. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was a survival instinct. Maybe some part of me already understood that whatever happened next, I needed to be calm. Instead of storming over there, I picked up my phone, angled it carefully, and took a photo. A clear shot of both of them, her hand on his cheek, their faces close, mid-kiss with the date and time embedded in the image data like a silent witness. My heart hammered as I opened our text thread. For a few seconds, I just stared at the empty message field, my thumbs hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, "Enjoy dinner with your mom," attached the photo, and pressed send. I swallowed hard, set the phone down, and stared at her table. Tanisha's phone buzzed on the white linen. I watched her pull away from the man, still smiling a little, and pick it up. Her expression was casual at first, probably expecting some harmless message from me. Then I watched the transformation. Her eyes widened. Her smile vanished. Her face drained of color. The phone slipped from her fingers and hit the table with a loud clack that turned a few heads, including the waiters. She looked around the restaurant frantically, her head moved in quick jerks, scanning faces. When her eyes landed on me, sitting in the corner booth, our gaze locked. I have never seen that expression on anyone's face before. Panic, guilt, and the sharp fear of someone who realizes the game is over and they have no backup plan. For a split second, I thought she might stand up and rush over. I saw her mouth open, forming the beginning of my name. I did not give her the chance. I stood up, placed a $20 bill on the table for the water I never touched, and walked out. I did not look back. I could feel her eyes on my back, feel the heat of humiliation and desperation coming off her. But I kept going. Out in the parking lot, the humid North Carolina air hit me. It should have been a relief after the cool restaurant, but it felt heavy, like it was pressing on my chest. I made it to my car, sat down behind the wheel, and just gripped the steering wheel with both hands, knuckles white. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I did not check it. As I pulled out of the parking lot, my client called. I stared at his name flashing on the dashboard screen for a few seconds before answering. "Hey, Brian. I just got here. Where are you?" he asked. My voice felt distant in my own ears as I replied. "Something came up. Family emergency. I am really sorry. Can we reschedule?" He paused, clearly surprised, then said, "Of course, man. Do what you need to do. We will talk next week." I thanked him and ended the call. I drove aimlessly for about 2 hours, looping around parts of the city I barely registered. Streetlights, strip malls, quiet neighborhoods, and the occasional gas station blurred together. My phone kept buzzing, calls, texts, voicemails, but I ignored all of it. I could not face her voice. I could not handle the lies I knew were coming. Eventually, the exhaustion and adrenaline crash hit me. I pulled into the parking lot of a mid-range hotel near the interstate, walked in, and asked for a room. The clerk barely looked up as she handed me a key card. I went upstairs, set my phone on the nightstand, and finally turned it off. The silence was heavy but strangely comforting. I lay on the bed fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. My mind replayed the scene at the restaurant over and over. Tanisha's hand on his face, the way she leaned in, the way the light from the window caught her hair, the sound of her phone hitting the table. I closed my eyes and still saw it. I think I slept for maybe 2 hours total, in broken fragments, waking up each time with my heart racing. The next morning, pale sunlight slid through the gap in the curtains. I forced myself to turn my phone back on. The screen lit up with notifications, 38 missed calls, and about 50 text messages, all from Tanisha. There were also a couple from my client, and a few from my brother, Reggie, asking if everything was all right. I scrolled through Tanisha's messages. "It is not what it looks like. Please come home so we can talk. You are overreacting. He is just a friend from work. I can explain everything. Where are you? I am worried sick." And then, hours later, a different tone. "This is your fault for never being home." That last message snapped something into place inside me. The speed with which she shifted from panic to blame took less than 12 hours. I stared at that line for a long time. This is your fault. 9 years together, 6 years married, and within half a day of being caught kissing another man and lying about where she was, she had managed to make it my fault. I felt an odd clarity settle over me, cold and sharp. I did not text her back. Instead, I scrolled to Reggie's name and called him. He answered on the second ring. "You good, man?" he asked. His voice sounded cautious, like he already suspected something was wrong. I swallowed. "No," I said. "I am not. I need a place to stay for a little while." There was a rustle on his end. "Say no more. Come over. I am home." Before heading to Reggie's, I made another call. One of my closest friends from college, Calvin, is a divorce attorney in another state. I had never imagined I would actually need to use that connection. When he picked up, he sounded surprised. "Brian? What is going on?" I exhaled. "Calvin, I caught Tanisha kissing someone else last night. She lied and said she was at her mom's. I need a referral to someone local who is good." There was a long pause. Calvin's voice softened. "I am sorry, man. That is rough. Listen, I know a woman in Charlotte who is excellent. Her name is Michelle Owens. I will text you her information. You do not have to decide anything today, but get a consultation. Know your options. Do not tell Tanisha you are doing it yet. I thanked him. I appreciate you. Really. He replied. You are not alone in this. Call me if you need to talk. By 9 in the morning on Friday, I had a consultation scheduled with Michelle for Monday. The hotel room suddenly felt too small, too temporary, so that afternoon I drove to our house while Tanisha was at work. I parked a few houses down and took a long look at the place I thought we had built together. The brick front, the porch swing she insisted we get, the flower beds out front that I had planted myself. Inside, everything looked exactly the same as when I had left the previous day. The framed wedding photo in the hallway. The throw blanket over the back of the couch. The little basket by the door where we kept our keys. I moved quickly, trying not to dwell. I packed a bag with essentials, clothes, toiletries, a few pairs of shoes, my laptop. Then I went to the small safe in the closet and pulled out my important documents, passport, birth certificate, the deed to the house, all in my name from before our marriage. I stood in the bedroom doorway for a moment, looking at the bed we had shared. It felt like a stage where a play I did not understand had been performed. I told myself I would deal with the emotional fallout later. Right now, I needed to be practical. I locked up, took one last look at the front door, and drove to Reggie's place. Reggie lives in a townhouse across town. When I arrived, he opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a brief, rough hug. Come in, he said. You look like you have not slept in a week. I sat on his couch and told him everything. The text about dinner with her mom, the restaurant, the kiss, the photo, the messages afterward. Reggie listened quietly, his jaw tightening. When I finished, he shook his head. I never like how she talked to you sometimes, he said. I did not think she would go this far, but I always felt something off. I sighed. You told me that a few years ago. I did not want to hear it. Reggie put a hand on my shoulder. You wanted to believe in your marriage. There is nothing wrong with that. That evening, as I was in the shower at Reggie's, someone began pounding on his front door. I heard it over the water. Hard, insistent knocks. Reggie yelled, I got it. So I stayed where I was, heart suddenly pounding again. A minute later, I heard Tanisha's voice, loud and desperate. Where is he? I need to talk to my husband. Reggie told me later exactly how it went. He opened the door to find Tanisha on the porch, eyes red, hair slightly disheveled, still in her work clothes. Reggie said, he does not want to talk to you. Tanisha's eyes flashed. You cannot keep him from me. This is ridiculous. It was one dinner. Reggie raised an eyebrow. One dinner where you were kissing another man while lying about being at your mother's. Yeah, I saw the photo. We all saw the photo. Tanisha tried to push past him, but Reggie is a big guy, broad-shouldered, and he just planted himself in the doorway like a wall. You need to leave, he said calmly. Tanisha's voice rose. This is between me and my husband. Reggie shook his head. He does not want to see you. Leave before I call the police. She glared at him, tears welling again. You are poisoning him against me. You never liked me anyway. Reggie replied. You are proving my instincts right. Goodbye, Tanisha. Then he closed the door. He told me all this when I walked out of the bathroom, towel around my neck, hair still dripping. My stomach knotted, but there was also a grim sense of validation. Tanisha had not even waited a full day before trying to force her way into wherever I had gone. The weekend blurred into a cycle of blocked calls, new numbers, and messages from her mother, and her sister. Reggie helped me block each new number as it came in. Monday morning, I walked into Michelle Owen's office with the restaurant photo printed out, a rough timeline of everything that had happened, and for the first time in days, a clear head. Michelle was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with a calm, steady presence. She flipped through my paperwork, studied the photo, and nodded. Classic, she said. They always think they are smarter than they are. She asked questions about the marriage, our finances, and the house. When I told her the house was in my name, purchased before the marriage with inheritance money from my grandfather, she nodded again. In this state, that is separate property. However, you said you renovated the kitchen 2 years ago using funds from your joint checking account. I confirmed that. She may try to claim some of the increased value from that, Michelle said. We are probably talking $20,000 to $30,000 worth of argument. Annoying but manageable. We moved on to retirement accounts. My 401k had grown to around $180,000 during the marriage. The portion that accumulated during the marriage is marital property and will likely be split, she explained. So you're probably looking at losing around $90,000 there. I exhaled slowly as the numbers landed. Her retirement. I asked. You said she has about $45,000 in her employer-sponsored retirement account, Michelle said, looking at the printouts. You will receive half of the portion that accumulated during the marriage, so approximately $22,000 back your way. It is still a net loss for you, but that is the law. She folded her hands. The one piece of good news is that you do not have children together. No custody battle. I stared at the table for a moment, trying to absorb the reality. So, I'm going to lose close to $100,000 for a marriage she treated like a business plan, I said. Michelle did not flinch. You're going to lose money, she agreed. But you are also going to gain your life back. The question is whether you want to stay in this or get out now while you're still relatively young and in control. I nodded. I want out. On Tuesday, we filed for divorce. On Wednesday, Tanisha was served at her office. According to Michelle, who heard the story through one of the process servers, Tanisha had made a scene, burst into tears, and had to be escorted to a conference room by the Human Resources Department. A small part of me felt bad when I imagined her sitting there, crying in front of coworkers. The larger part of me remembered her text saying it was my fault she cheated. That Wednesday night, she showed up at our house. By then, I had moved back in. Michelle had advised me to do so, since it was my house, and leaving voluntarily could complicate things. First thing I did when I returned was change the locks. When Tanisha tried her key and it did not work, the confusion and anger on her face were captured perfectly by the doorbell camera. She started banging on the door. "Let me in. This is my home too," she shouted. I opened the door but kept the chain on. "It is not," I said. "The deed is in my name. My attorney advised me to secure my property." She glared at me. "Your property? I have lived here for 6 years. You cannot just lock me out." I held her gaze. "Actually, I can. You moved out Friday when you chose to stay at your mother's instead of here. Remember? The same mother you were definitely having dinner with last Thursday." Her face flushed bright red. "That is not fair," she said. I replied, "Neither is lying to your husband while you make out with another man 3 tables away from him at a restaurant. Yet here we are." She crossed her arms. "I want my things." I nodded. "Schedule a time with my attorney. She will arrange a supervised pickup." Tanisha's eyes widened. "Supervised? Are you serious?" I said. "You try to force your way into my brother's home. I am not letting you in here, unsupervised." She stared at me, and I could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. The tears that had come so easily in front of others dried up now that she realized they were not working on me. "You are making a huge mistake," she hissed. "I will take you for everything." I shrugged. "You can try." Then I closed the door. She stayed on the porch for another 15 minutes, alternating between knocking, pacing, and talking angrily on her phone, before finally leaving. The next day, I received a call from her mother, Denise. She did not bother with greetings. "You need to stop this foolishness right now," she said. "This divorce nonsense. My daughter made a mistake. You need to forgive her and move on." I took a breath. "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill," I said. "Your daughter carried on an affair." She lied repeatedly. "That is not a one-time lapse." Denise scoffed. "She told me it was one dinner, one moment of weakness, because you're never home. You men are all the same. You cannot handle a woman having her own life." I replied, "Her own life can absolutely include not being married to me. That is what this divorce is." There was a sharp intake of breath on the line. "You will regret this," she said coldly. "Tanisha is the best thing that ever happened to you." I answered, "She was kissing another man 3 tables away from me while telling me she was with you. If that is the best thing that ever happened to me, then I clearly need better things." Denise hung up without another word. Michelle suggested I should identify the man from the restaurant, in case his identity became relevant to the proceedings. So one evening, sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee, I opened Instagram and started looking. Tanisha had posted photos with him before, I realized, always in group settings, office parties, happy hours, a company outing at a baseball game. His name was tagged on a few photos. From there, it was easy. I looked him up on social media, then checked LinkedIn. He worked in marketing at the same firm as Tanisha. A bit more digging, combined with a quick review of public court records, revealed that he was married as well. Married for 4 years, with 2 young children. His wife's profile showed pictures of him pushing a stroller, family trips to the park, birthday parties. I sat there staring at a photo of him holding his toddler daughter, smiling at the camera, and felt a cold anger settle into my chest. His wife had no idea what he was doing on Thursday nights, or that he was kissing my wife in an upscale restaurant while his children probably slept at home. I debated with myself for a while, then finally composed an anonymous email. I attached the restaurant photo and wrote, "Thought you should know. Check his Thursday nights." I hesitated for a long time before pressing send. It felt petty, but also right. He knew Tanisha was married. Tanisha knew he was married. Neither of them cared. If my life was going to burn, I did not see why he should walk away unscathed. 3 weeks later, things were significantly messier. I had underestimated how far Tanisha would go to regain control. First came the situation with the affair partner. From what I pieced together through the explosion of drama that rippled through their office and mutual acquaintances, his wife received my email and confronted him that same night. At first, he denied everything. Then she went through his phone and found far more than one incriminating photo. There were messages, hotel reservations, rideshare receipts. Turned out Tanisha was not his first affair. His wife filed for divorce within a week. He began blaming Tanisha for ruining his life. Tanisha, in turn, was furious because he was supposed to leave his wife for her. The tangled web began to tear. That was when I learned, through phone records Michelle subpoenaed, that this was not some random fling. They had been seeing each other for almost 8 months. 8 months of lies. 8 months of working late and dinner with mom and girls' nights that were actually hotel rooms and secret meetups. The texts between them were enlightening in the worst way. It was not just about the affair. It was about finances. Tanisha had been planning, in explicit detail, to take me for everything in the divorce and then ride off into the sunset with him. One text she sent him stood out especially. Michelle slid the printout across her desk so I could read it. In it, Tanisha had written, "He is so clueless. By the time I am done, I will have the house, half his retirement, and alimony for years. Then we can finally be together for real." My stomach dropped as I read the words. Michelle watched my face. "I know it is painful," she said, "but this actually helps us. In this state, adultery by itself does not change asset division much, but evidence of a plan to intentionally defraud a spouse financially. Judges pay attention to that." She filed a motion to include those texts in the record. Tanisha's own words became a weapon against her. Tanisha was not done fighting dirty, though. In the second week after we filed, I received a call from a human resources department at my job. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint alleging that I had been aggressive and threatening toward a female colleague. My heart pounded as I sat in the small conference room, facing the human resources representative. "We are obligated to investigate any complaint," the representative said gently. "Can you tell us about your interactions with this colleague?" I racked my brain, then realized the name they mentioned was someone I barely knew. "I have spoken to her exactly twice," I said. "Once in a team meeting and once to ask where the new supply cabinet had been moved. Both conversations were brief and professional. Over the next week, they interviewed people, checked security footage, and found nothing. The complaint was eventually dismissed as unfounded. Still, the experience was stressful, and I knew exactly who had made the anonymous accusation. Tanisha had thrown a dart, hoping something would stick. When that failed, she escalated again. A few days later, a police officer knocked on my door. I opened it to find a uniformed officer standing on the porch, notebook in hand. "Mr. Walker?" he asked. I nodded, pulse quickening. "Your wife, Tanisha, filed a report claiming you have been stalking and harassing her," he said. My mind reeled. "I have not contacted her at all," I replied. "She's the one who keeps showing up here at my brother's house, and even in my workplace parking lot." I invited him in and pulled up the doorbell camera footage of her pounding on my door for 15 minutes after being told to leave. I also showed him messages from Michelle advising me to maintain no contact. The officer watched the footage, took notes, and then looked at me with a measured expression. "From what I am seeing, this does not match her description," he said. "I will follow up with her, but I do not see grounds for charges at this time." He left, and I sat down on the couch, hands trembling for a long time afterward. In the third week, Tanisha hired a new attorney. Her first one had apparently advised her to be more realistic, and she did not like hearing that. The new attorney immediately filed for temporary spousal support, claiming Tanisha was financially dependent on me and could not survive without my assistance. Let me be clear. Tanisha earns $75,000 a year as a marketing coordinator. She has her own car, fully paid off. She has $45,000 in her retirement account. She is living with her mother rent-free. There was nothing about her situation that suggested financial dependence. Michelle responded by submitting copies of Tanisha's pay statements, bank account summaries, and proof of her living arrangements. The judge denied temporary support, but scheduled a hearing to determine permanent arrangements after the divorce. At the same time, the emotional warfare from Tanisha's family intensified. Denise began calling my mother, Patricia, my brother, and even my Aunt Sylvia, whom she had met only twice, repeating the same story to all of them. I was overreacting, vindictive, and had driven Tanisha to a moment of weakness by working too much and neglecting my wife. My mother, who does not raise her voice often, later told me she had finally snapped on Denise. "Do not you dare call my son to blame him for your daughter's choices," she had said. "Your daughter lied, cheated, and plotted. That is on her." According to my mother, she then hung up without waiting for a response. My aunt called me later to say, "If I ever doubted you, hearing what that woman tried to say erased it. You do not owe them anything." Tanisha's sister, Charisse, reached out to Reggie, trying to get information about what I was planning. "Maybe if I know what he wants, I can help Tanisha calm down," she said. Reggie replied, "Lose my number. I'm not your source of intel." He blocked her after that. Amid all this, Tanisha's father, Charles, called me directly one evening. His voice was calm but heavy. "Son, I'm not calling to yell at you," he said. "I just want to understand what happened." I exhaled and told him everything. I described the restaurant, the photo, the text Michelle had uncovered about Tanisha's financial plotting. When I finished, there was a long silence on the line. "I did not know about any of that," Charles said finally, his voice low. "She told us you had become emotionally distant and that she had one dinner with a coworker that you blew out of proportion. Does that sound like something worth filing for divorce over?" I answered, "If that were the whole story, probably not. But that is not what happened." He sighed, and I could hear the weight in it. "I will talk to her mother," he said. "I cannot promise it will help, but I am sorry. I raised her better than this. Or I thought I did." That conversation hit me in a different place. I had anger toward Tanisha, resentment toward Denise, but hearing the disappointment and regret in Charles's voice made me feel a small ache for him. His daughter had become someone he did not recognize. Still, feeling sorry for him did not change my reality. My legal bills were climbing, and Tanisha's tactics were getting more desperate. Near the end of the third week, Tanisha texted me from her original number for the first time in days. "Can we just talk without lawyers?" she wrote. "We are wasting so much money fighting." I stared at the message for a long moment, then showed it to Michelle. She advised, "Maintain no contact. She is trying to pull you back into emotional negotiation. We are making progress legally. Do not derail it." I blocked Tanisha's number. That same night, a new voicemail came from a different number. Tanisha's voice sounded slurred, like she had been drinking. "You think you are so smart," she said. "You think you won, but you do not know everything. You do not know what I know. You are going to regret this. I have evidence of things you did. So you better think carefully about how you want this to go." I played it for Michelle the next day. She listened, then asked, "Is there anything she could possibly have on you?" I shook my head. "Nothing. I have never cheated. I have not broken any laws. I pay my taxes. I do not even speed. The worst thing she has on me is that I sometimes fall asleep on the couch with the television on." Michelle nodded. "Then it is an empty threat. Desperate people say desperate things. We will keep the voicemail. It shows her mindset." Oddly enough, that was the moment something inside me shifted. I realized I had been on defense the entire time, reacting to her affair, her accusations, her tactics. That night, sitting alone at my dining table with a frozen dinner and a stack of court documents, I decided I was done playing defense. I would follow Michelle's lead, document everything, and let the truth speak for itself. Over the next few months, there were hearings, filings, and what felt like an endless exchange of documents. Tanisha's evidence she had threatened me with turned out to be screenshots of text arguments we had had over the years. In them, I said things like, "I am exhausted and do not want to talk about this right now," or Can we discuss this later? I am in a meeting. Her attorney tried to frame these as emotional abuse and stonewalling. At one hearing, the judge flipped through the printed screenshots, adjusted his glasses, and looked up at Tanisha's attorney. These appear to be normal marital disagreements, he said. I see no evidence of abuse here. Tanisha's attorney tried to argue, but the judge held up a hand. Counselor, we are not going to relabel ordinary frustration as abuse. Move on. When that angle failed, her attorney pivoted to claiming I had hidden assets. They demanded full financial discovery and a forensic accounting of my finances. Michelle shrugged. Let them, she said. You have nothing to hide. They combed through my salary, my bank accounts, my retirement statements. After 3 weeks, they found exactly what I told them they would find: a modest savings account, a 401k, and a checking account that reflected a life of regular bills and the occasional takeout order. Meanwhile, the text between Tanisha and her affair partner stayed in the record. The judge read them in full. I watched his expression as he read the message where she called me a meal ticket and wrote, I have earned every penny I'm going to take from him. The judge's lips thinned. He set the papers down slowly, looked at Tanisha, then at her attorney. He did not say anything immediately, but the air in the room shifted. After months of back and forth, we finally reached the last hearing, the one that would finalize everything. The courtroom was small, fluorescent lit, and impersonal. Tanisha sat at one table with her attorney, her hair pulled back, makeup heavier than usual, but not quite able to mask the dark circles under her eyes. I sat at the other table with Michelle, feeling a mixture of dread and relief. The judge began by addressing the house. He agreed that it was my separate property, purchased before the marriage using inherited funds. Tanisha's attorney argued that the kitchen renovation had increased the home's value and that she was entitled to half that increase. The judge acknowledged the joint contribution, but was not persuaded by the inflated numbers they presented. In the end, the judge awarded Tanisha $12,000 for her contribution to the renovation. That was it. She had requested $150,000. She received $12,000. I saw her shoulders stiffen when she heard the number. Her attorney leaned over and whispered something in her ear, but she stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. The judge moved on to the retirement accounts. He ordered that the portions accumulated during the marriage be split, which meant I lost about $87,000 from my 401k, but received about $21,000 from Tanisha's retirement account. A net loss of roughly $66,000. It was a painful sum, but by then I had made peace with the fact that there was a price to exit this marriage. Then came the bigger fight: spousal support. Tanisha's attorney requested $3,500 a month for 5 years, a total of $210,000. Michelle countered with documentation of Tanisha's salary, her savings, her rent-free living situation with her mother, and, importantly, the texts where Tanisha had plotted to financially exploit me. Michelle stood and addressed the court. Your Honor, she said, the petitioner is gainfully employed, has significant savings, and pays no rent. There is no financial hardship here. Additionally, the respondent has provided evidence that the petitioner referred to him as a meal ticket and described a plan to take as much as possible from him through this divorce. Spousal support is meant to assist a spouse in genuine need, not reward a plan of exploitation. The judge nodded slowly. When he delivered his decision, the courtroom felt unnaturally quiet. He awarded Tanisha 18 months of rehabilitative alimony at $1,100 per month, totaling approximately $20,000, less than 10% of what she had requested. Tanisha actually gasped when the number was read. Her attorney placed a hand on her arm, but she pulled away. Karma did not stop with our case. Her affair partner's divorce finalized around the same time. Because he was the higher earner and his wife obtained primary custody of their 2 children, he ended up paying significant child support and alimony. He lost the house and moved back in with his parents at 36 years old. My brother heard from a mutual acquaintance that Tanisha was devastated when she realized he could not afford to play the role she had imagined for him. Tanisha and the affair partner broke up 2 weeks before my divorce was finalized. She actually tried to use that as evidence that she had learned her lesson and deserved a more favorable settlement. The judge was not impressed. By then, the pattern of her decisions and intentions was too clear. The ink on the final decree felt inevitable. The last hearing was surreal. When it ended, the judge read the final orders, said, "This court is adjourned," and walked out. The sound of his footsteps echoed for a moment, then faded. People began gathering their papers, standing up, murmurings filling the room. Tanisha looked smaller than I remembered, her shoulders hunched, her eyes fixed on some point on the floor. As we stepped into the hallway, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Michelle was talking quietly to another attorney when Tanisha approached me near the elevators. Her attorney had stepped away, and Michelle was a few feet down the hall, speaking on her phone. Tanisha stood in front of me, hands clenched at her sides. "Was it worth it?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Destroying everything we built." I looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her, trying to reconcile the woman in front of me with the person I had married. I thought of our early years together, the laughter, the road trips, late nights cooking together in that same kitchen she had tried to claim. Then I thought of the photo in the restaurant, the texts about taking me for everything, the lies. "You destroyed it," I said quietly. "I just documented the wreckage." She shook her head. "I made one mistake," she said. "You planned to take me for everything I had while sleeping with a married man for 8 months. I answered. "That is not a mistake. That is a campaign." Tears welled in her eyes. "He manipulated me," she insisted. "I was vulnerable because you were never there." I inhaled slowly. "I was 3 tables away," I said. "You just did not bother to look." The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open. I stepped in. Tanisha stayed where she was, staring at me with an expression I could not quite read. Anger, regret, disbelief, maybe all of the above. The doors closed, and that was the last time I saw her in person. That was 2 weeks ago. I am still in the house. It feels larger now, somehow emptier, like the absence of another person has expanded the walls. I spent one weekend repainting the bedroom. The old colors reminded me too much of Tanisha's tastes, soft grays and blues she picked out while flipping through catalogs. I chose a new color, warmer, calmer, and spent hours rolling paint over the walls, covering the past one stroke at a time. At night, the house is quiet. Sometimes I sit on the porch swing and listen to the distant sounds of traffic, the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog, the chirp of crickets. Financially, I am down about $100,000 when you add attorney fees to the retirement losses and the $12,000 for the kitchen renovation. That is a painful hit. But I am 34, I earn a decent income, and I am healthy. I will recover. The alternative would have been staying married to someone who saw me as a walking bank account. Someone who, when caught in a lie, immediately twisted it into my fault. I think about that sometimes when I open my laptop to pay bills and see my accounts lower than they used to be. Money can be regained. Time, trust, and peace of mind are harder to rebuild. Word travels, especially in a city the size of Charlotte. My brother's girlfriend, Asia, has a friend who knows Tanisha's sister. Every now and then, a new snippet makes its way back to me. Tanisha is still living with her mother. The apartment she wanted fell through because her credit was not as strong without my income on the joint records. Her affair partner blocked her on all platforms after his divorce finalized, and she's been calling him a coward to anyone who will listen. Her family has split into factions. Charles has not spoken to her since he learned about the texts and saw the extent of her planning. Denise blames me entirely and has apparently forbidden anyone from saying my name in her house. Charisse sits in the middle, telling people that Tanisha made mistakes but insisting that I could have tried harder to work things out. Working things out with someone who is actively plotting to devastate me financially while lying to my face was never an option. Sometimes, late at night, I replay the relationship in my head, looking for red flags I ignored. There were signs, if I am honest. The late nights at the office started gradually. The new gym membership she never invited me to share. The phone that went from lying openly on the table to always being face down. The quick, defensive way she would respond when I asked simple questions about her schedule. I explained all of it away because I trusted her, because I loved her, because I cannot imagine she would do something like this. It is uncomfortable to admit that part of the reason I did not see it coming is that I did not want to see it. I believe in the story I thought we were living, even when the real plot had started to diverge months earlier. A few nights ago, I woke up at 3 in the morning and instinctively reached toward the other side of the bed. My hand met empty sheets. For a moment, half asleep, I felt a hollow ache. Then I remembered. The ache was still there, but it was different, more like the soreness after a healed wound than the sharp pain of something freshly broken. Yesterday, my phone lit up with a message from a number I did not recognize. I hope you're happy. You ruined my life. The text read. It took me all of 1 second to know it was Tanisha. I stared at the words, thought about everything that had happened, and felt a kind of quiet resolve. I blocked the number without responding. Tanisha ruined her own life. I just refused to let her ruin mine too. The photo from the restaurant is still on my phone. I have thought about deleting it. Maybe one day I will. For now, every once in a while, I look at it, not to punish myself, but to remind myself that my instincts were right that night, that I am capable of walking away from someone who does not value me. In that photo, Tanisha is frozen in mid-kiss, her hand cupping his face, the soft lighting making the scene almost cinematic. Anyone else looking at it might see only romance. I see the exact second my marriage ended. The waiter in the background who brought me water that night probably has no idea he witnessed the beginning of the end of my relationship. For him, it was just another Thursday shift, another table to serve, another forgettable evening. For me, it was the moment the mask slipped. The moment I saw who Tanisha truly was beneath the story we had built together. 9 years together, 6 of them married, brought down by a text message, a photograph, and the sound of a phone hitting a table. Now, I am standing in the quiet aftermath, repainting walls, changing passwords, and learning what my life looks like when it belongs only to me. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.